Okay, I hope my voice is audible now. I hope my voice is audible. Can anyone confirm in the chat box if my voice is audible now? Okay, so I'm really sorry for the confusions. So there was suddenly, I don't know what happened. The system suddenly got stuck and I was unable to hear anything. So now I spoke about what is protocol. The protocol is a document which describes about objective design methodologies and statistical consideration in the organization of clinical trials. And what is the purpose of protocol is to standardize the procedures and processes for conducting of clinical trials and to make sure that right safety and well-being of trial subjects are protected and data is accurate and also data is credible. So what is the key content of clinical trial protocol? So first section, it should contain the title and study identifiers, which includes the study phases and trial numbers and identifying numbers. The second one, objective or purposes, it clearly defines the primary objective and secondary objective, why we are conducting the conduct of clinical trials. The third one, background and rationals, what is the background of disease and also the drug and rationale for conducting this particular clinical trial with this objective. We justify the study based on the previous available data and information which is already there, which can clearly study or clearly specify that why we are conducting this clinical trial, which is third section, which is the background and also rationale for this. And fourth section speaks about the design of the clinical trial, where it has to be randomized or double blind or stratified or single blind or it is a comparative or non-comparative or short-term or long-term trials and phases and structure of the subject flown for the screening and treatment and then follow up on the end of the study. So all those things will be coming in the design of the clinical trial, which is the fourth section. The fifth section, eligibility criteria, the inclusion and exclusion criteria, where subject has to meet the criteria to participate into clinical trials, specifies the inclusion and exclusion criteria to make sure the participant selectants and also the withdrawal criteria, how the subjects or when the subjects will be withdrawn from the clinical trial for particular studies. Then there is something which is called as interventional details, that how the drug will be given or what is the dosage and dose or route of administration and the way the clinical trial drug should be given and the schedule the clinical trial drug has to be given. Everything should be given into interventional details. And the next point is endpoints and also the outcome of the clinical trial drugs we have to be given, like defines the primary endpoints and secondary endpoints, and what is the outcome of the patients when the clinical trial should be stopped and when the patient should be said that responders and non-responders and when the clinical trial outcome has to be measured. And there is one more thing which is called a statistical consideration or analysis, sample size creations. And the next one is how many subjects are being taken for the analysis and how many subjects are withdrawn or discontinued from clinical trials, and method of data analysis and submission of the data for particular clinical trials. And the next one is safety monitoring and reporting, how the SAEs are being reported for particular clinical trials. You have to understand that how we are submitting the safety reporting of your adverse events or serious adverse events. And last one is ethical considerations. What are the ethical considerations we are taking into conducting of clinical trials, like ICH-GCP or Declaration of Helsinki or your Nuremberg Code or Belmont report. So what are the different ethical guidelines we are taking while conducting of clinical trials? So these are the key elements how you are going to consider the clinical trials, like general informations, background information and rationale of clinical trials, and study designs, and then objectives, the methodologies, what has to be considered, and safety considerations, efficacy considerations, data management, statistical plans, quality assurance, quality control, and expected outcomes, and endpoints, anticipated adverse events or problems, budgeting kind of things, and the CVs of the investigators, and other research activities to be conducted in particular clinical trial protocol. So these are the elements in particularly with respect to your protocol. So now who prepares the protocol? Protocol is being prepared by sponsor. So protocol is being developed by sponsor, and protocol is sent to the review of ethics committee and regulatory reviews. And then protocol will be used by every team, including the investigators or CRCs or CRAs and project managers and data managers and statistical analysis people or TMF people, to make sure that how the clinical trial has to be conducted as per the written document which is approved by ethics committee and also the regulatory requirements or regulatory authorities. So now how to write a protocol? It has to have a main investigators, a name, address, phone numbers, and any hospitals or any institutions where clinical trial has to be conducted, and any CROs which has to be contacted. Any third party vendors like lab or something like that, we have to give the details of the vendors also. So investigators, the institutions, vendors, and the clinical trial sites, and title of study, the study numbers, and also the rational and background information about the clinical trial, how the clinical trial has to be conducted with the rational and background. So study design is one of the most important part in clinical trials. How the clinical trial should be conducted, is the single center or multi-center, prospective or retrospective, controlled or uncontrolled, open label, single blind or double blind or triple blind, randomized or non-randomized, parallel or crossover or partial crossover, and experimental design or observational designs. So there is something which is objectives also, which are being clearly mentioned. There is something which is called as endpoints, primary endpoints and secondary endpoints. There is something which is called as expected results. There is something which is called as analysis criteria, the analyzed criteria like mean variables or endpoint variables, or how safety variables are being taken into consideration for particularly analysis. And there is something which is called as the visits and examinations, like how many visits subject has to come for screening, treatment, and also for follow-up, and also end of study, and how many visits the subject will be dosed, formulations and method of administration, and how informed consent has to be taken, how we are going to select the subjects based on the study populations, like short descriptions, inclusion exclusion criteria, and also the withdrawal criteria. So this is one more thing which has to be informed how we are going to do it. The sample size, estimated duration of study. The sample size is also one of the most important thing, and the safety advisory boards, and the serious adverse events or adverse events which are being put for your clinical trials has to be given very clearly. So this is one more time a protocol, how protocol is being developed and how protocol has to be utilized for in terms of how clinical trial has to be performed. So there is one more thing which is called as advancement in terms of clinical trial protocol. What are the recent advancement we are going to get? In recent year, the clinical trial protocol has evolved multiple things, which has addressed scientific and also the logistic and regulatory challenges. The advancement improves the efficiencies and also flexibilities and enables the trial to adapt to the new clinical trials. So now there is one design which is called as adaptive trial designs, which allows the modification at various stages during your conduct of clinical trials, that how the clinical trial can be modified or changed. So the sample size can be re-estimated, dose can be adjusted, and early stopping can be done. That is what you call it as adaptive trial design. In a simple words, the way you started clinical trials can be modified during clinical trial at any point in time. That is what you call it as sample size re-estimations and dose adjustments, and also early stage or early stoppings is called as your adaptive designs. Now there is something which is one more advanced design which came into picture, which is called as master protocol or innovative trial design. So what is master protocol? There are three different types of master protocols. The first one is the umbrella designs, the second one is basket design, and third one is platform designs. The first one, umbrella designs, multiple treatment in one disease is called as umbrella designs. And the second one, which is called as basket design, which generally says that the one treatment for multiple diseases. It's opposite to umbrella designs. Umbrella designs multiple treatment for one disease, and basket designs one treatment for multiple diseases. And platform designs is multiple treatment for multiple diseases. It's a complex design, but it's one more time a master design will be there. So this is the second design. The first one is adaptive design. The second one is the master protocol or innovative clinical trial designs. The third one is the decentralized clinical trials, which are called as virtual clinical trials, which are the siteless clinical trials, where conduct of clinical trials where it can engage remotely the participants of patients for recruitment and retention and engagements, reduces geographical barriers and increase the diversity for conduct of clinical trials. So which is called as decentralized clinical trial. There is one more thing which is called as real world evidence studies, which incorporates the real world data such as electronic health records or electronic medical records and patient diaries, and also insurance data, to make sure that the conduct of clinical trial is being done properly or not. So use of digital tools, integration of wearable devices, mobile health technologies, collects continuous data, improves the monitoring, and reduces the data entry errors. So now these are the latest advancement. The first one is adaptive design. The second one is your virtual clinical trials. The third one is how the real world data is being used, and also digital tools, how we are going to use in particularly clinical trial protocol. So there is one more big term which is called as amendment of protocol. So there are two bigger words. One is substantial amendments, and also the second one is administrative amendments. The substantial amendments may affect the subject safeties or trial conduct and data analysis. Administrative amendments, minor changes, will not affect the trial core structures. Example, updating the contact details or modifying the investigator details or correcting the typographic errors. So now the process is very clear. The protocol has to be updated and it has to go for ethics committee for review and approval. Once the review approval is being done, it goes to regulatory authorities, and regulatory authorities will approve it, and then it goes for protocol amendment. So now in today's topic, I have spoken about what is protocol, the purpose of protocol, key content of protocol, advancement of protocol, the process of protocol getting approval, and amendment of clinical trial protocol. So I hope I have given a lot of content for how the clinical trial protocol works and how the clinical trial protocol benefits for conduct of clinical trial. So with one more topic, we'll meet next week for one more YouTube live. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a nice weekend for us. Thank you.